What happens when a Toronto clothing store suddenly puts Jimin's face on a shirt, just as thousands of ARMY are arriving for BTS? One moment, it's an ordinary clothing shop. The next? People are stopping in the street. Phones are coming out. The doors are getting busier. And suddenly, one simple Jimin design becomes the center of attention. Because BTS is officially in Toronto for the August 22nd and 23rd concerts at Rogers Stadium, and the timing could not have been more explosive. Ticketmaster lists both Toronto shows for 8 p.m. at Rogers Stadium. But the real question is, why did this particular Jimin design get ARMY so excited? And what happened when fans realized they could actually wear it to the concert? Stay with me, because the story gets even more interesting. Imagine Toronto on concert weekend. The city feels different. There is movement everywhere. People are carrying purple bags. You see BTS shirts walking down sidewalks. You hear Korean, English, French, and dozens of other languages mixing together. Some fans have traveled for hours. Some have flown into Canada. Others have been waiting for this exact weekend for months. And somewhere in the middle of all that excitement, a clothing store makes a decision that seems simple. Put Jimin on a design. That's it. A shirt. A face. A name. A little creativity. But nobody could predict how quickly ARMY would react. Because when BTS comes to a city, the concert doesn't always begin when the lights inside the stadium turn off. Sometimes, the concert begins on the streets. It begins in restaurants. It begins in subway stations. It begins outside hotels. And sometimes, it begins inside a clothing store. That is exactly why this moment caught attention. The timing was almost perfect. BTS's Toronto concerts were scheduled for August 22nd and 23rd at Rogers Stadium, meaning the entire city was already preparing for an enormous weekend. Live Nation also lists both dates at Rogers Stadium, with the shows scheduled for 8 p.m. So picture a fan walking through Toronto. Nothing unusual. Just another day. Then they see something through the store window. They stop. They look again. Wait. Is that Jimin? The fan moves closer. And suddenly the phone is out. Camera open. Recording. Because this isn't just another shirt. It's Jimin. And once that image reaches social media, the situation changes. One person sees it. Then another. Then another. And suddenly the design isn't sitting quietly on a clothing rack anymore. It's becoming something fans want to talk about. And here's where things get interesting. Because ARMY doesn't simply buy merchandise. They create memories around it. A shirt can become the thing you wore when you met your best friend. A hoodie can become the souvenir from your first BTS concert. A simple piece of clothing can suddenly carry an entire weekend of emotion. And for Toronto ARMY, this particular timing made the design feel even more special. Because this wasn't happening 6 months before the concert. It wasn't happening during a quiet week. It was happening right when BTS was about to take the stage. The city was already vibrating. And Jimin was suddenly appearing everywhere. Now imagine stepping inside the shop. The atmosphere is completely different from the streets. Outside, Toronto is moving quickly. Cars passing. People walking. Phones ringing. But inside? Fans are looking around. They spot the design. Someone points. Another person pulls out their phone. Someone says, "Look at this." And within seconds, the shirt becomes the conversation. But then comes the question everyone wants answered. Was this officially released BTS merchandise? Or was it simply a fan-inspired local design? That distinction matters. And unless the store or official BTS channels confirm an official collaboration, viewers should not assume that the shirt is officially endorsed merchandise. But here's the fascinating part. It doesn't necessarily make the moment less exciting. Because the excitement comes from the fans. From the creativity. From seeing Jimin's image become part of Toronto's BTS weekend. And that is where this story becomes bigger than a shirt. It becomes a snapshot of what happens when a global artist enters a city. Toronto doesn't just host BTS. Toronto becomes part of the BTS experience. Think about it. Rogers Stadium isn't just a concert venue this weekend. For thousands of people, it's the destination they've been waiting to reach. Ticket listings confirm BTS has 2 Toronto dates, August 22nd and August 23rd, at Rogers Stadium. That means 2 nights. 2 enormous crowds. 2 chances for memories that fans will talk about for years. And before many of those fans even enter the stadium, they're already searching for something. A shirt. A poster. A bracelet. A photo. Something that says, "I was there." And suddenly, a Jimin design at a Toronto clothing store becomes exactly that. Proof of the moment. A souvenir from the weekend. Something fans can wear while walking toward the stadium. And that's why the reaction feels so emotional. Because behind every purchase is a person. Maybe someone who has followed Jimin for years. Maybe someone who discovered BTS during a difficult period in their life. Maybe someone attending their very first BTS concert. Maybe someone who has waited through years of uncertainty just to see 7 members standing together on a stage again. And now they're in Toronto. They're close. It's real. The concert is happening. The city is alive. And Jimin is right there on a shirt. That combination is powerful. But then something else happens. The design starts becoming a photo opportunity. Fans don't just look at the shirt. They pose with it. They photograph it. They send it to friends. They share it online. And this is where the modern fan experience becomes almost cinematic. One image creates another. One post creates another. One fan's excitement becomes another fan's curiosity. Where is this? Is it still available? What's the store? Can I get one before the concert? And suddenly, a local clothing store has become part of the conversation. That is the power of timing. If the same design had appeared during an ordinary week in February, maybe the reaction would have been completely different. But this is Toronto. August 22nd. BTS Concert Day. The energy is already at maximum. And Jimin's face appears at exactly the right moment. It's almost like dropping a match into a room already filled with fireworks. But there's something even more emotional about it. Jimin has a special connection with fans that goes beyond photographs and performances. For ARMY, his image can immediately trigger memories. A particular song. A particular performance. A particular smile. A particular moment from years ago. So when fans see his face unexpectedly, the reaction isn't always logical. It's emotional. You don't think. You react. You stop. You smile. You grab your phone. You call your friend. You say, "You have to see this." And maybe that's why the store moment feels so much bigger than it should. Because the object itself is simple. But the emotion attached to it isn't. Now let's imagine the street outside. A fan walks out carrying the shirt. Another fan notices. Then another. Someone asks where they got it. And suddenly the conversation moves from inside the store to outside. This is how fan culture works. Information travels incredibly fast. Especially during concert weekends. One person discovers something. Thousands want to know. And that's where the excitement can snowball. Suddenly, the question isn't, did the store make a Jimin shirt? The question becomes, how many ARMY are going to show up wearing it tonight? And that creates another layer of anticipation. Imagine walking into Rogers Stadium and seeing thousands of people. Purple everywhere. BTS banners. Light sticks. Handmade signs. And then scattered throughout the crowd. Jimin shirts. Different designs. Different styles. Different stories. But the same emotional connection. The shirt becomes part of the crowd. And suddenly, that local Toronto design has traveled from a clothing rack into one of the biggest nights of the year for ARMY. That's the part that makes this moment so fascinating. It isn't necessarily about the commercial value of the shirt. It's about cultural momentum. A city is preparing for BTS. A local business sees the excitement. Fans respond. And the boundaries between music, fashion, fandom, and city life begin to disappear. Toronto becomes the backdrop. BTS becomes the soundtrack. And Jimin becomes one of the faces of the moment. But wait. Because there's another question. Why Jimin? Out of 7 members, why did this particular design attract so much attention? The answer might be simpler than you think. Jimin's visual identity is incredibly recognizable. His face can immediately catch attention. His name carries enormous recognition within BTS's global fandom. And during a concert weekend, fans are actively looking for anything connected to their favorite member. That doesn't mean every Jimin-related item will automatically become popular. But when timing, design, fandom, and location all collide, something special can happen. And Toronto was already the perfect environment for it. BTS's official tour listings place Toronto directly between the Arlington shows and the upcoming Chicago dates. Ticketmaster lists August 22nd and 23rd in Toronto, followed by August 27th and 28th in Chicago. So fans aren't just experiencing a concert. They're experiencing a tour moment. A chapter. A temporary transformation of the city. And Jimin's shirt becomes one tiny piece of that larger story. Think about what happens after the concert. The lights go down. The crowd slowly leaves. People are exhausted. Some are crying. Some are screaming. Some are laughing. Some are replaying videos on their phones before they've even left the stadium. And somewhere among them, someone is still wearing that Jimin shirt. Maybe it's already covered in memories. Maybe someone signed it. Maybe a friend took a photograph of them wearing it. Maybe they wore it during their first BTS concert. And suddenly, the shirt isn't just clothing anymore. It's a memory. That's the emotional side of fandom that people outside the community sometimes don't understand. When fans spend money on something connected to an artist, they're not always buying an object. Sometimes they're buying a reminder. A reminder of where they were. Who they were with. How they felt. What happened that night. And years later, that shirt might still be sitting in a closet. Someone might pull it out. Look at it. And immediately remember Toronto. August 2026. BTS. Jimin. The crowd. The lights. The screaming. The feeling of being there. That is why seemingly small moments can become huge memories. And here's something else that makes the situation fascinating. The store doesn't need to be an official BTS partner for fans to appreciate the creativity. A local business recognizing the excitement surrounding a major concert can become part of the city's cultural atmosphere. It shows how much influence an artist can have beyond the stadium. The concert can affect restaurants, hotels, transportation, retail stores, tourist activity, and yes, even clothing shops. For one weekend, Toronto is not just a city hosting a concert. It becomes a meeting point for people who share the same passion. And Jimin's design is a visual symbol of that. But now imagine the moment when a fan who has never seen the design before walks into the store. They don't know what's happening. They see the shirt. Then they see another person wearing one. Then they hear people talking about it. Suddenly they're curious. They ask, "Is this from the concert?" And the answer opens an entire conversation. That's how fandom creates community. Not through complicated introductions. Not through formal meetings. Sometimes all it takes is a shirt. A name. A familiar face. And suddenly two strangers have something to talk about. That is the hidden story behind the chaos. The screaming. The phones. The photos. The rush. It's connection. And Jimin's image simply becomes the spark. Now let's go back to the most important question. Did the store expect this? Maybe. Maybe not. And that's the mystery. Because when a local design meets a global fandom, the reaction can be impossible to predict. You can print a few shirts. You can put them on a rack. You can open the doors. But you cannot control what happens when thousands of passionate fans walk through the city. That part belongs to the fans. And that's exactly why Toronto's BTS weekend feels so electric. Because there is anticipation everywhere. The official concert itself is confirmed. The venue is confirmed. The dates are confirmed. And the fan excitement is impossible to miss. But the smaller moments? Those are what make the weekend personal. A stranger helping another fan find the stadium. Someone giving away an extra bracelet. Friends meeting after years. A parent accompanying their child. A fan traveling across the country. And somewhere in that massive crowd, someone discovers a Jimin shirt. Then someone else. Then another. Suddenly, the design becomes part of the visual language of the weekend. Purple lights. BTS logos. Army bombs. Jimin's face. Toronto's skyline. And the stadium waiting in the distance. It sounds like a movie. But that's what makes live music so powerful. You never know which tiny detail will become the memory you remember most. Maybe it won't be the opening song. Maybe it won't be the fireworks. Maybe it won't even be your favorite performance. Maybe it will be standing outside a clothing store hours before the concert. And seeing Jimin's face printed on a shirt. That is the strange beauty of fan culture. The biggest memories can come from the smallest moments. And perhaps that's why people are so emotional about this. Because after years of waiting, BTS is finally in Toronto. And for 2 nights, Rogers Stadium becomes the center of the ARMY universe. Live Nation's official event listing confirms the Toronto dates for August 22nd and 23rd, while Ticketmaster lists both shows at Rogers Stadium at 8 p.m. That means tonight isn't just another night. For someone in that crowd, it could be the night they've imagined for years. And before the members even appear on stage, the city has already started telling its own story. The streets. The signs. The merchandise. The outfits. The fans. The anticipation. And now, Jimin on a Toronto clothing design. That's the kind of detail people remember. Because when the stadium lights finally go dark, thousands of light sticks will rise. The screaming will begin. And for a moment, everything outside disappears. But the memories created before the concert don't disappear. They stay.